Good afternoon. My name is Andrei, and this talk is more of an entertainment talk, less of an education talk, but I hope you will learn through it some of the things that just characterize our lives as engineers. I am the engineer that works with Linux for many years. I'm a proud Linux desktop user for many years, and I work as an innovation technology researcher in the Kubernetes area with my company called Komodor. And the troubleshooting is bread and butter of Komodor and the bread and butter of me. In today's talk, I will be using the systematic elimination strategy, which is divide and conquer, and you will be tracking how it is used throughout some interesting life story. It all starts with me having a good friend who's able to do all of these hardware things, and he made himself a CyberDeck. CyberDeck is this fancy, customly made computer that you are able to carry in a small box. It has huge battery, basically, and has Linux inside it. And I was so jealous because I like hardware toys. But I quickly realized that I cannot have a CyberDeck with me as a travel computer, because TSA in the United States on the border would not be particularly liking me carrying some suspiciously looking box with the wires and things. So I needed something more civilian. And I concluded that I need a mini laptop, specifically mini laptop. Why would you need one of those? First, it's work-friendly. You can do your job on it anywhere, and it's so small, but it enables you to do your work. It's travel-friendly. You can it's size of a book. You can take it anywhere around the world. You don't need to carry a huge backpack with you with all of the wires and equipment. It's just a small laptop, so nice, super friendly for your travels around the world while being on call, because the life is continuous. It's night-friendly, because my wife is not super happy with me watching the gaming streams in high quality. My laptop goes wee. She says, I cannot sleep. I need to do something with that, preferably with passive cooling. And it's loss-friendly. My work laptop, $2,000, maybe more, and I need something much more cheaper, because if I'm doing travel-friendly moves and I'm doing something with it, I have a chance to lose it, to be stolen, to break it through the travel. So it has to be much, much more loss-friendly than my regular laptop. So I came into the German Amazon, because Portuguese Amazon, I live in Portugal, Portuguese Amazon is not offering much, and I went there and I found a nice laptop. 2 CPU cores, sufficient for Linux, 8 gigs of RAM, sufficient for Linux, disk, I don't care the size of the disk there, sufficient ports, sufficient battery, and the price is attractive, much, much lower than the full-size big laptops. Amazing. I'm ordering that for myself. And with that, I'm about to grab it in Germany. It's a Christmas time of 2024. I'm preparing the USB stick with me because I'm planning to burn into it Linux immediately. Great. Off we go. I am arriving. It awaits for me. It looks beautiful. Amazing. The only trouble that is in there is Windows that is installed. I need to replace that quickly. And this is where I'm making the mistakes. I'm booting into Windows. Windows looks fine, boots, nothing more I want from that OS. I'm erasing the hard drive, starting to install Ubuntu, and this is where the warning signs started to appear. The screen went blank. I quickly Googled that I can do no mode set. The display is rotated 90 degrees, but I'm thinking of myself with the help of ChatGPT that it's okay, it's driver's problem that I will solve later by installing, tweaking, configuring, etc. I install Linux into it, it boots but goes blank. When I boot it, it turns on and then quickly turns off. What do? I go do touring of the Christmas markets. Glühwein, German beer, sausages in many cities. It was fun, amazing experience. And sometimes before the sleep, I was playing with that thing, trying to make it work without much of success. But then when I returned, I had to do something, because although it's a loss-friendly laptop, I'm not ready to lose it. I'm willing to fight for it. And this is the troubleshooting experience. It's like peeling an onion. You do layer after layer. Sometimes you curse. Often you cry. But you have to go. You should not stop. And like the real onions, sometimes it has branches and sub-bulbs inside it. And this is like this journey was happening with many parallel things happening. For the sake of the story, I will just say one linear story of it. Many of the things were happening at the same time with it, and across many months. The ChatGPT, I wouldn't be able to do this troubleshooting experience without ChatGPT, because I'm not that lower level guy. At that moment, I was not ever touching Linux kernel. It's hard to tell if ChatGPT is hallucinating or it just gives you a suggestion that just don't change anything. Basically, the same emotion that ChatGPT shows to any of its suggestions. It always defaults to the X system is present even when you ask it and say there's no X system installed. It's still, in 3 messages, it loses it. But the chat's history that were saved there served as a good journal, because I did not expect in the beginning that there will be a talk like this. So I reverted back to those journals, and I was able to reconstruct the sequence of events with technicalities that were included there. Here we go. We start. It's me trying to fix that thing. First of all, we start with the most top-level hypothesis that we could do. Is it a hardware problem or a software problem? Many things were saying that this is not a hardware problem because the Windows booted fine, the no mod set is fine, so it is kind of something in the Linux part of it. So it's not a hardware problem. Is it X system to blame? Easy to discard that hypothesis because we can boot into pure Linux. I reinstalled many times the Linux into that machine even without any signs of X system. No, it's not X system. It's the same symptoms for everything. Is it something in BIOS? Something that I should change and Linux would suddenly recognize that hardware? I tried and go. There's a lot of options. I changed everything. I tried to touch everything in that BIOS, and nothing helped. And the painful part of the experience with booting, when you break something through the BIOS in this machine, it's that there's no BIOS reset, there's no CRC battery. You have to unplug the main battery switch there, signed with yellow, and this is how the laptop looks from inside. I broke the seal because, again, this is a loss-friendly thing. I don't care of the guarantee. It's a no-name Chinese laptop at the end of the day. Which guarantee are we talking about? It's a passive cooling copper cooling plate. Some of the stuff had to open it and close it. It was very annoying. Is it wrong resolution settings somewhere? Maybe the Linux boots and tries to set some video mode for whatever reason that is incompatible with the panel, and Windows was able to boot it. I tried so many options of changing it through grub CMD line, through some live set commands, nothing is there. Although I learned how do I print the picture into frame buffer directly. This is the most bypassing everything test of the video frame buffer memory. There's even this, it smells like 90s. Some weird codes exist that you can set into booting Linux that would be telling it to the specific resolution, but it would be telling it through some bit flags, whatever, I don't know. But I was feeling very weird. And I exhausted these options. The grub, you can ask grub to say what's the videos supported for this hardware. And it says everything is fine, all is good. And I said, okay, I exhausted that variant. The resolution is not to blame. What else can I do? Let's go into the system logs. And in system logs, there's actually some suspicious things. There's some memory conflict going on. It's there somewhere, if you can see. And there are some GPIO problems happening. I Googled GPIO problems, and there is documentation saying that this is okay-ish situation because it only means that the hardware is not ready to accept GPIO. It will be tried later, like nothing worrying. The memory conflict, though, looks very suspicious. Let's go into that hypothesis. Not much, like Googling doesn't say much about it. What can we do? We only can tell Linux to reserve certain segment of the memory, so it does not try to put anything there. But laptop did not react to any of the attempts, and there's not much to change there. I tried to put the double memory reserve to overlap the regions, increase, decrease, nothing works. What's next? I'm being a good open source citizen. I went to the issue tracker of Intel, and I created what is probably the most nicest bug report in the world. Because I put everything by the book, everything they requested, nicely put. I'm proud of that piece of a document. Really invested time into it. And with a very slow pace, with the great help of the guy named Suresh, I felt he's really on my side. We got a couple of responses, but the responses from other Intel team members, they were mostly showing that they did not read the bug report that I sent. They were asking some really off questions that were answered in my actual bug report. But I learned from that experience that I can enable debug logging of the Linux driver, the i915 driver. So that was useful. Everything else was pretty much not useful. And my hardware friend who has CyberDeck, he always was telling, Intel is dying, Intel is dying. And I don't know which comes first. You first neglect your users and then you start dying, or you first start dying and because of that you neglect the open source users. But something's wrong there, and I felt really bad about that. Bad experience in that part. Next hypothesis, would other operating system work? I first tried all the flavors of Linux I could reach. Fedora Workstation Live is claimed to be one of the best with the hardware. Doesn't change much. Different Linux kernel versions. Doesn't change much. Puppy Linux for the fun of it. All the same. I quickly felt that whatever I take with Linux, it all looks the same. What about non-Linux? I went exotic. I tried Hiren's boot CDE, whatever, didn't work for me. React OS did not work for me. Old good Menuet OS from the floppy drives, my youth times. I could not make it work, but really did not invest much into it because it's super exotic. Heiko OS has loaded into weird resolution, rotated, and I felt like I cannot do much around there. The GhostBSD worked. It booted with the correct screen, because I read in the internet that GhostBSD has its own flavor of Linux video driver, the Intel video driver. They have their own flavor. But although it's great, and I was about to accept, okay, I don't care about the OS if it's Unix family OS, but I need to do my work for that. I need the browser, and with no Wi-Fi, it's really no-go for me. Doesn't work for my criteria. What's next? Then I thought, okay, how Windows? I don't like to touch Windows in my life, but if the diagnostic is there, how can I obtain that? And I tried to install Windows, but I hit some missing driver messages there, could not install Windows. And on the laptop, there is at the bottom a small sticker saying something about activation issues. And these Chinese guys promised to send you the new activation codes for your Windows. Sounds super fishy. I don't think they really appreciate the business of Microsoft there. But okay, I just thought, what do I risk? Let's send the message to that Lubin Bin and ask him to give me the image, because, guys, you use the images to burn into that operating system. This is how you do it. Can you send me that image? So I download it and quickly try. And unlike Intel, I had responses in 24 hours with a very friendly guy who sounded very junior. He did not make sense of what I write first, but he was careful enough to pass what I was asking from him to somebody with more experience, and in a couple of days I got the link to download. From Chinese file share server, I was about to download the image for that Windows. But from China into Portugal, it's very hard to download. The speed was of dial-up modem, and I downloaded a couple of megabytes, 10 megabytes, then the link has expired. And I understood that I cannot go that route because it's too time-consuming for me. So what do I do next then? But like the takeaway here is, although the expectation bar might be very low, sometimes unknown Chinese guys are higher than Intel with the quality of their support. Maybe it's an unsupported firmware. I check that version. There is an amazing site called linuxhardware.org where you can validate if your hardware causes troubles to other people. No, my hardware was not causing trouble for the other people. The same model of the video card was working fine. What is that video card? In system logs, I did not find much. There is some default string, then BIOS version. Okay. That BIOS version partially matches the name of the file the Chinese guy was sending me. Only partially, but that's a good sign. It's like he was sending me something good. Again, something meaningful. You remember that QR code on the inside? There was under the copper plate. It has also some just markings of the hardware and no help actually on what is that model. DMI the code. And this is where your expectation bar should be the lowest, because they did not even pay any time in changing the any options in their hardware identification, and it's full. It's like in other sections of DMI the code, everything is full of the default string thing. And I can kind of understand that, because now when I'm talking about it, the vendor has disappeared from Amazon, from everywhere. I guess it's probably because Microsoft is slowly trying to catch them, and they disappear, and this is why they put their default string. But bottom line, I cannot expect much from identifying the hardware and then going on the internet and finding what can I do with that hardware, how can I troubleshoot it. No hope there. But I'm still not ready to accept the loss, and I will just dive deeper. Again, my wise friend, the lover of hardware, he was calling it much earlier. He was saying, with this pace of troubleshooting, you will quickly get into custom Linux kernel compiling. And yeah, he was right, because I had to go there. So my hypothesis was, let's go. What can I move? I tried to move everything around me. What else can I move? I can move maybe Linux kernel, compile this, compile that. Let's see what is there. And it's not so hard to start compiling your own hardware, your own Linux kernel. I'm not saying modifying it, but compiling is very easy. You check out the source code, and there is the branch that the Intel uses for development of its driver. The driver of Intel itself is part of kernel software code base, but they develop it in a separate branch, and periodically they merge it into the upstream. This is how it's organized. So I can take the check out the DRM branch from the Intel part of it, and I get the full Linux kernel, just the branch of development. I install the tooling to compile it. I can do dev config. I can do menu config to play with the options. I do make with my 2 CPU threads, and it would compile. First time it was like, I don't know, maybe 9 hours. I compiled it overnight, and then subsequent compiles are quicker, and you then can do make install, put it into grub, reboot, and you have the kernel that you control. That's pretty cool. I like it. I like to have control. So I started to play with different configurations, because when you don't know what you're looking for, you take this big blob of a problem and you slice pieces of it. Sometimes you cut it in 2 halves, and you see where the problem reproduces. This is the method. And I systematically applied that method in parallel to my life, because the compiling the loop takes so much time. I disabled option by bunches, by like really rough bunches of Linux kernel. And suddenly it worked. Suddenly, turned 90 degrees, but it did not disappear on me. I'm onto something. Now, I know it's possible, and I know that the key is in Linux kernel options. How do I compile it? So this time, I will be doing it differently. I will go from 0 Linux kernel configuration, and I will increase it in the direction of Linux, in the direction of Intel driver enablement. So I will get the minimalistic Linux kernel that will reproduce the problem, and I will find exact place where the problem appears. And I prepared better. I started from the empty config. I first made it to boot into Camo emulator on my desktop machine, because it's a painful experience when you bootstrap the image on the machine that you need to reboot and you need to type on it, and sometimes you cannot even type anything into it because it has no network, no keyboard support, nothing. So I first made it in the emulator. Then when the emulator worked, I moved it into actual hardware, continued from there. And I created the snapshotting mechanism when, with the single script, I'm getting snapshots and diffs of all the options, everything that changed, the logs, the messages in the DMS, everything. So I was prepared. And this is how minimal bootable Linux kernel configuration looks like. It's 727 in that case options, and this is fascinating because it shows how less software, how less things divide your software layer from actual hardware. The Linux is, I had additional boost of respect to the kernel because of that, because it's so slim and cool looking. Then, in those loops, I hit the overheating problem. That thing was overheating because it takes a lot of compilation and the heat builds up, and the copper plate, the modest copper plate of passive cooling does not survive that, so it eventually overheats. And it was causing so much problem because when it halts mid-compiling, it causes corrupt artifacts of the compilation, and then it's impossible to continue from it. And I need to make clean everything and recompile. It's a painful experience. I had to play with some BIOS thermal tripping point to work around that. Mostly it worked, so I continued, but that was another unpleasant stop on my journey. And with some minimum options of Intel video, it has showed again, but by that time I learned how to rotate text mode and grab options. How do you do it textual? Amazing, we're almost there. Automated snapshots have caught the option that was causing the trouble, and it's called pin control GeminiLake. And GeminiLake is the name of the mobile processor family that is used in that laptop. So all of the time, ChatGPT could have told me that, dude, you are using GeminiLake. There is the option called GeminiLake, but ChatGPT is unable to make sense of all of those tens of thousands, no exaggeration, tens of thousands of Linux kernel options. It gives hallucination on the names of them. It invents the options. Initially, I spent so much time trying to Google whatever he suggests me and not finding at all. And then he was going, no, sorry, I confused it, sorry. I wasted so much time. Almost 2,000 options, working kernel, boots, looks fine, amazing. But can we then, if this option enables this module, the kernel module, can we blacklist the module, stop it from loading, and take the stock kernel and boot, and it works? And yes, I disabled it, and it boots. It's so great. But no sound and no touchpad. Again, for my purposes, I would probably even survive with no sound, because I need a travel working laptop. But no touchpad on the travel laptop really doesn't fit my usage profile, so I had to continue. So let's go even deeper. What does this pin control for i9-15 do? You remember those lines that in the internet, not even ChatGPT, the regular Google and documentation of Linux kernel, it says it's fine. No, it's not fine. In this case, these pins, GPIO pins that we trigger, they actually contribute to the picture of loading and something happening with the LCD display. And with the help of Intel support, where I learned how to enable additional debug messages, I saw that in the context of boot, there is some MIPI sequences happening. And MIPI is actually a funny thing which answered some of my questions: how do hardware work with software? So we see that the MIPI sequence is happening. I raised many of the lines because it's a huge log. And then this is the problematic MIPI sequence when we see the GPIO options failing. And this is actually how it looks in a bigger detail. There is some piece in BIOS that is stored in the hardware part that driver talks to it, asks it to give me video BIOS table, and that video BIOS table contains the sequences of what to do through GPIO with my hardware to enable these MIPI LCD panel. So it's much more complicated than I was starting with. And the VBT table looks like this. The MIPI sequence says, activate GPIO index 6, wait for 1 millisecond or 10 milliseconds, deactivate the pin 30 milliseconds, and then activate it again, 100 milliseconds delay. So cool, so makes total sense. So something is wrong there. And there were more GPIO pins, not only pin number 6 involved, there were pin number 4 and pin number 3 involved in those sequences, saying that they are failing something. Then I went into the documentation of this processor, trying to understand what can be wrong with those pins. And I found actually even more connection to the hardware of those, because there are specific GPIO pins for enabling and disabling panels, and this pin control GeminiLake-C file in the driver, not in the driver, in the kernel, the module, it only carries inside the translations between pin numbers and the corresponding names of the pins. That's it. It's just the layout, which corresponds exactly to the layout of pins in the documentation page. I tried to check all the hypotheses, different shifts, that there was confusion of +1, -1, that the driver was, that the GeminiLake, somebody misprinted the numbers and confused the numbers a bit. And initially, it was quite confusing for me, because like we read the table and it's like numbers, and this is 64. No, you should read it from right to left. You know why? I Googled where the GeminiLake processor was designed. It's Israel. And their writing system is right to left. When they were creating documentation, they were copy-pasting the table from their direction of writing, but it's very hard for the Western left-to-right system to read. Oh, many confusions there, but the bottom line is nothing helps. All right, then what do we do when we cannot do it smart? We do it dumb. I use the old good brute force iterations, and I just gave up on the smart thing, and I just went into the source code of the kernel driver, and I just bypassed the pins one by one. And when I bypassed the pin number 6, everything started to boot. And I had that machine, it's probably the right time. And I had that machine This is the hero. Look, 90 degrees rotation could not win over it, but then it rotates after some piece of Linux kicks in. Come on, come on. Yeah. This is the moment when it would turn off, turn on, turn off and not go up, but with the patch of mine, it does. All right, but it comes with the price. Something useful happens with those pins. I cannot put this thing into sleep. When I put it into sleep, it does not wake up. The screen gets blank. It still overheats sometimes, so the passive cooling is not too good on that thing. But I spent so much time, I invested so much time into troubleshooting this thing, and I can live with that. And to be fair, when I was preparing this talk, when I started to touch these things again, the mystery that I still did not solve fully. I made the laptop for myself to work, but I did not solve that mystery and did not fix it to the very bottom of it. So there was this temptation to start troubleshooting it again. I quickly pulled myself out of it because I have life. But what can we learn from this experience? First of all, the first mistake I did, I should have backed up the drive contents before erasing Windows, just in case. But you know me, I'm not a fan of Windows, so I thought it was like backing up the drive of Windows. What? Why would you spend time doing that? The methods that we can learn from this journey is, when you don't know what you're looking for, do this slicing of the unknown. When you roughly understand what you're looking for, build up from the zero, so you will get smallest manageable subject to work with. And with all of that, with all of the pain that I went through, Linux is still probably the best open source software, because it enables this journey of hardware and software, and anyone can go through it. It's not so hard to start compiling Linux. Bonus. This is the configuration of the stock Ubuntu kernel, how it looks like. When I was working on all of this, and I'm that researcher, if you remember my main background, I was fascinated by the amount of options and complexity of the Linux configuration kernel. It's 20,000 enabled options of the Linux Ubuntu version of the kernel. So the network stack looks like the small thingy on the side. Fascinating. If you need research or university project, some huge graph to work with to test your algorithms, this is it. This is amazing. When I was looking for the visualization software, nothing worked. I found one called Gephi, which is able to work with that volume of the graphs. Nothing else worked, which is a cool challenge in your life. And with that, thank you. Any questions? I don't know. Any suggestions, if any? And thank you for coming. It was a pleasure. Yes?
Would you do it again?
That's a tricky one, because we are all like that. We all like this troubleshooting. We all like these firefighting experiences, because it gives you the feeling. This is why I never stopped in the middle. It gives you the feeling of completion, of achieving something, of getting things done when you finally nailed the problem and reached the goal that you set for yourself in the beginning. So yes, I would do that. I would rather probably continue, because this is such an unsolved mystery that bugs me inside, that I still did not get to the bottom of it. And it's so easy to, again, reopen that box and start playing with it and finding, because the windows worked. And Ghost BSD worked. They know something how to work around those pins or whatever they do. And I want to fix the sleep for this laptop. It would be even nicer. So there is some unsolved mystery to it. But you can buy these kind of laptops. They are everywhere on Amazon in the 200 euros, 250 euros range. So you can buy one for yourself and enjoy. Anyone else? Any more questions?
So you didn't look at the code in GhostBSD to find out what they did different?
One of the things with GhostBSD is that when I was playing in that area, I found a very nice statement that says that the hardware support in BSD ecosystem is on the level of early 2000s in Linux. So it's kind of disqualifying that route at all. Yes, but there is particular chat in ChatGPT where I ask it, can I port their variant of the driver into Linux? And it says, like always, well, you can try. No, not the way. But yeah, I see so many routes that I can go. I can look here, there. Now I know so much more than I was knowing in the beginning. No good reason to say no to that variant of it, but it takes so much time to experiment with that. And well, I'm still modest developer of the kernel. It's hard to navigate my ways around the source code there. I feel like I did not exhaust all of the ways of finding how exactly works. Because one of the things that was very problematic for my understanding here is this thing. There's no such thing as GPIO index 6 or number 135 in GeminiLake, pin control, in the specification of the Intel. There's no such number. So there is some translation of the numbers, and they have this diagram of multiplexing events something. So there's some lower level thing going on there, which I stopped earlier by just brute force. Maybe not the best and not the smartest solution, but I was exhausted because it took me months of experimentation, and this is the thing. All right, thank you. I'm around if any more questions, if any. Thank you.